Hey everyone, we're gonna file people in over the next couple of minutes. If you're looking for something to do, you can go ahead and change your screen name so that it says where you are, and that way we'll know where everybody is, and maybe you'll find some new friends. Yeah, give it a try.
Yeah, and I was also going to say, additionally, if you'd like to, in the chat, share just who you are, where you're from, and if you are in an area that has traditionally been part of a, an indigenous group's native territory, please feel free to share that as well. That's something that we do in our product, and we encourage everyone to think about when they're using our tools. Can give folks maybe 2 more minutes to file in and get started at the 5. For folks who are joining us, encourage you if you'd like to both update your Zoom name to share where you are located so that we can kind of get a sense for who's here, as well as if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat with where you're located, and if you know the traditional denizens of the lands that you are on, who those folks might be. Excellent. I think we may have a few more people filter in, but go ahead and get things started. So welcome everyone for joining us either tonight or this morning, wherever you might be in the world. And thanks for coming to our open house for the generally curious, or our open house. So what we're going to do is just kind of go through a quick overview of what FieldKit is. I know some of you are pretty familiar with what we do. Some of you are maybe completely new. So go over kind of what we do. Shah will do a demo of the product, and then we really want to hear from you about what are your thoughts about FieldKit, what you might like to see. Really want it to be a pretty interactive session, as well as answer any questions you might have. So if you want to just kind of, either post those in the chat as we go along or save them toward the end. Either of those is fine. I know last time we did one of these, we had our team pretty active answering questions in the chat as we could. So whatever works best for you certainly works for us. So what is FieldKit? It is a scientific grade open environmental sensing system for everyone. The main things that we like to really highlight when we're talking about FieldKit is that it is not just a hardware platform, it is a hardware and software ecosystem that is fully open source and modular, so that it provides people with a really flexible but robust way to capture data about their environment and to tell stories with that data. We are a project of Conservify, which is a conservation focused not-for-profit. We got a few of our team members here tonight who you will get to know. And yeah. So we're the three folks that are going to be talking to you tonight. We have Shah Selby, our co-founder, Jer Thorpe, a co-founder, and then myself, Lindsay. I'm the community manager. So if y'all would like to introduce yourselves really quick, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I could go first. I'm lucky to know a handful of you guys on the call today, but I am, co-founder of FieldKit, founder of Conservify. This is a project Jer and I have been working on for a while around trying to solve some of the big problems we see in environmental sensing and do it in a completely open source way. So everybody listening here, if you hear something about FieldKit that you think we need to add or that's missing, we're happy to do that. We have a team that's working on the development of that sort of thing, but also, it's open source. So if you want to add something to it, feel free, you can make it yours as well. So thanks.
Hey, I'm Jer. I think I knew a couple of people on the call as well. I co-founded this project with Shah like eight years ago, and it's super exciting to see everything come together, and even more exciting to hear everybody in the room. And I won't say much more than that, other than you're going to hear us say it lots and lots that we need your help, and please feel free to reach out to any of us. We're friendly, and we want to hear from you.
And then I'm Lindsay. So as the community manager of FieldKit, I am responsible for really trying to make this more than just a tool, but something that is about connecting people and connecting projects and connecting, regions and disciplines and other things that may not get the opportunity to interact with one another. So really what I'm here for is to facilitate and to listen. And I'm super excited to have all of you here with us. So we use the tagline a lot, FieldKit is for everyone, but that really is, it's more than just a tagline, it's our mission statement. As I mentioned before, our goal is really to create research grade tools that are accessible for not just, field scientists with a whole bunch of funding, but really for everyone, whether that be educators, librarians, citizen scientists, environmental justice activists, you name it. Give them the tools to measure their world, to simplify the process of managing and sharing their data, and then to really just empower everyone to advocate for the environment. As I mentioned before, FieldKit we have this really cool hardware that we're going to show you, but it's more than just a physical tool. FieldKit exists in an ecosystem that is, as you can see, the hardware an app that you can use to interact with the hardware, and then the fieldkit.org website where you can go to manage your data and the projects that you're doing with it. Something that came up the last time we did this, the software component of it is completely free. We don't have a a subscription service. If you have a station that you have access to, whether it's one that you purchased or one that you're working with that somebody else owns, you have the ability to go in and work with the data because it's yours. So like we said, we have open source tools that are, again, modular, giving you the ability to be flexible with what you're doing. A platform for learning and sharing, and for people who know a lot about this kind of thing and people who are brand new to it to work together and share. And then building this community of environmental care that is truly global and truly interdisciplinary to make the world a better place. So first, here you can see our hardware. As I've said a whole bunch already, it's built out to be totally modular. So you can see here there's the upper board that's kind of the brains of the station, the lower board that handles the communications, and then that large yellow board at the bottom is the module base where you can mix and match whatever modules you want to use for environmental sensing. So if, for example, you had 4 water modules going and you decided all of a sudden you wanted to track weather, you could remove one of those, put in the weather module, and not have to buy a whole new station or any of the core hardware. It gives you the ability to have that that flexibility in what you do. And as we continue to add more modules and more sensors, that flexibility is really only increasing. So we have, I think, 6 available currently, a couple more waiting in the wings. And one of the things that I know our team is always interested in is hearing, what sorts of things are you interested in measuring? What kinds of sensors might we want to develop down the line? Or again, since we are open source, what things you might be interested in developing on our platform.
Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit, Lindsay, like the hardware we set up architecturally so that you can kind of change things very easily. So that the top and the bottom of that, basically our data logger, has separated things like power and communications is on a different is on the bottom board and on the top board, because those are things that we see people wanting to bring in their own requirements around different sorts of power systems and different sorts of communication mechanisms. So to kind of make FieldKit your own, you don't have to spin up the entire architecture of the hardware. You could just change one board and a little bit of firmware, and things should work well. And so the other thing is, Lindsay mentioned, we have some modules kind of waiting to be released. There's a long development pipeline, so there's lots of stuff that we've been thinking about and prototyping around. But we've also been working with other organizations that are building their own sensor modules to bring, if you don't like the probe that we're using on this iteration, or you would like to bring in some sensor you've used for research for a significant period of time, then we're creating the resources for developers to make that happen very easily.
So next, our app, you can see some screenshots here, currently available in the Apple Store and Google Play. So you can see with these screenshots, we have the sort of station management screen where you can see if you have multiple stations out in the field, where those are located and access their information. This deployment screen is the second one, which really walks you through the process of setting up your station and getting it ready to start capturing data, and say, what intervals you want to be taking measurements and things like that. The third one is kind of a summary of your deployment. So you can see here the readings off of a weather module and some information about, how much battery life the station has and what its current memory usage is and things along those lines. And then the last one is the data visualization component. So you can see how your data is changing over time. Really, the app serves as a way to interface with your station, to pull the data off of it in the field without necessarily needing to, plug into things, pull things back and forth. You can just push a button on the side of the station, turn on the station's Wi-Fi, and it can communicate directly with your mobile device in the field. And it also has some onboarding components and calibration. So the app kind of walks you through the process of getting set up as well. And then we have, our web portal, the platform that is located at fieldkit.org, and use this to manage your projects and kind of dig deeper into things than you would necessarily with the app. So here's where you can start to see patterns in your data and really get some of the meat of what your station is presenting. So obviously here, we have this data visualization piece, but you also have the ability to, add comments or add notes to things and provide some richness around what your project is about, whether that's for your own knowledge or your team, or if you choose to make your project public, that's something that, others may choose to share and interact with as well. You have the option to manage the visibility of your project to the world. We definitely don't want to use data that you haven't told us that we can use. You completely own all of your data in the system. We'll never do anything with it that you have not given us permission to do. We're not here to scrape environmental data and sell it to someone or any of that sort of thing. It's really important to us to have strong privacy protections for our users. Some other things that are coming to the portal are the ability to share your data via either Twitter post or sharing out a URL. We are building out localization, so giving you an interface in Spanish, French, and Portuguese to start. And then we also have this concept of collections that we're working on, which, Jer, if you'd like to just kind of give an overview since this is your baby, that'd be awesome.
Hey, yeah, sure. I was actually just going to write something about it in the chat, but we have sort of two ways that you can organize stations, and one of them is a project. So that's like if you have a bunch of collaborators and you're all working on a project together, maybe you share a number of stations. What our projects allow you to do is kind of do some sort of team management around that. So you can add and remove people. You can talk about what you're doing. There's like a little place where you can comment on the data that comes in, and so on and so on. And then the other thing that we have to be able to organize these things are called collections, and collections actually don't require that you own the station. So for example, if I was a scientist that was interested in, say, wetlands, I could make a collection of all the FieldKit stations all around the world that are in wetlands, and that'll aggregate the data for you in one place. And again, you have this forum where people can come and chat about that data. So maybe you have a number of stations that are in the Mississippi watershed, and people can be talking about the patterns they see seasonally or in other contexts. And so these types of things are really exciting for us. And I should say that what it also means, if any of you are teachers in the room or people are science communicators, is that you can get involved with FieldKit without having a station. So you can make collections of other people's stations and actually contribute to analysis and commenting and sharing and all these kinds of things that are super necessary.
Awesome, thanks. I'm so glad you mentioned the community portion, Jer. So a big part of what I'm doing is working on nurturing our relatively nascent community forum, which is, as you can see, located at community.fieldkit.org. And so obviously our community concept extends beyond just this forum. We have a lot of community interactions built into the portal, as Jer talked about, and are really interested in building out beyond our own ecosystem into working with other groups. But did want to share the forum. It is totally open for anyone to sign up if you'd like to interact with other people who are using FieldKit, curious about FieldKit. We have areas in there for everything from like troubleshooting technical issues that you might run into, to more sort of, for lack of a better phrase, like best practice sharing, to say like, how are you going to integrate FieldKit into your lesson plans if you're an educator? And so I encourage any of you who are interested to go ahead and sign up and join up with us. Like I said, it's still a bit in beta mode, but we're really looking to grow this in the coming weeks and months. All right. So
And
now
actually,
we are,
just sorry, one
go
thing
ahead.
that's probably worth mentioning. One cool thing that we've started to do in the community forums is to track grant opportunities. So if you are somebody who works professionally in this field and are interested in in ways that you can find funding for these types of endeavors, that's a really a cool part of what we've been doing with the community so far.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Jer. We have some great team members who are capturing all of that and putting it in there for folks. So I will stop sharing and move things over to Shah.
Great. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a live demo of FieldKit. Let's see, I have some hardware right here. This one is just measuring water temperature. That's all that's on it. As you can see, it's only got one module in the bay. One thing to note that we do with FieldKit is you can name the FieldKit anything that you want, but the hardware itself just generates a name around a name of an animal and an adjective to it. So this one's the rural impala. And so basically this was what she showed you above about the upper and the lower board. There's an OLED screen that allows you to do different things with the menu. And so one of the things I'll show you is, we could go ahead and turn on the Wi-Fi for this. There's a button on the side that does it as well. But when these things connect to Wi-Fi, then it gives you the opportunity to actually connect to the device itself. So here's the app. You can see if I log in, we have an onboarding that kind of takes you through how to build a FieldKit. If you've done this before, like the station that you see right next to me, we could skip it. And then that takes you to a page that shows all the stations that you've connected to in the past. And it also shows you like the status of all of them. So you can see the one that I'm connected to is rural impala. That's why it's blue. We also have a data page that shows you the readings.
This is like a open source remote monitoring platform.
Someone's not on mute right now.
Different, very different targets. I think they're trying to sell to
mute all.
The US. We're going to sell internationally.
All right. And then Shah will need to unmute you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there's the data page that shows all the different FieldKits that you've done before, and you can download the data from that. But if I go into the details of the station, it'll show you live readings of the data that's coming from them. One of the cool things that we've built into the app is this deployment process, and the reason why we built that is a way to kind of capture metadata around the deployments that you're doing. And so you can name that. You can change the data capture schedule to be simple or complex if you want to take a bunch of readings, in sunrise and sunset and things like that. That's all stuff you can do. And then once you actually get into the deployment, you could fill out all this information, and it takes both audio recordings and just text data. And then take a picture of your deployment. So if we take a picture, there's a FieldKit right there. Take a picture of your deployment, and then if you hit continue, then it will go through and show you all the details behind it and actually deploy your station. So the station itself is still taking readings if you're deployed or not deployed. The deployment is just a flag that's set to it. that kind of assigns this metadata to the data that you're actually collecting. And then, to download the data from the device, you can do that as well. And then you're able to kind of upload the data to the website. So let's see, if we go to the website, this is what the website looks like. It's got all the projects. So basically, the website allows you to do management of both stations and projects. And so you could see at the top here, there's a couple of the projects that I'm working on. And if we were to select one of them, this FieldKit demonstration, it shows a lot of the details and the pictures that you've collected, and you could find the station here. And if one thing to note is we do pull from the native lands API, so that brings in that information as well. This is the picture that I just took right now. Within the project page, you can also like set up team members and do all that sort of thing. But if you were to kind of explore your data, then you end up seeing a chart of all the data from your sensor. And we've made it so that you can zoom in very easily by dragging and dropping, and double clicking takes you out. When you zoom into a certain view, that view has a unique URL, so you can comment on that data, and that will kind of be tied. That comment will be tied to this data view, and you can add different charts to it and change the time series, the span. You could change if it's a histogram or a range or map-based visualizations if these things are moving, and then all that gets saved as its own unique URL. So if you were to share that URL, people will see the comments and all that. So I've manipulated this data page, but if I go back to this comment and click view data, it takes me back to the original screen that I was at. So that's kind of what we have from the website standpoint. The collections hasn't been integrated into this public facing version yet, but it soon will be. The other thing I do want to note is we have a product guide online. So if you're interested in learning a lot more of kind of the technical details behind FieldKit, you can visit this product guide, and there's a lot of information there, and we're constantly upgrading the information there and adding more. So you'll always find kind of more details about the different sensor modules and a lot of the other information around that. Okay.
All right. Cool. So I will unpin. Go back into. All right, so all of these beautiful people here are who we call our FieldKit 50. So back in Earth Day last year, the team had the rather ambitious goal to give away 50 FieldKit stations to 50 deserving projects around the world. So we ended up getting in around 150 applicants. And so after reading through all of these amazing projects that people came up with across all different kinds of fields and all around the world, we ended up picking these 50 who come from 24 different countries. And these folks are really kind of serving as some of our early adopters. I think we have a few of you actually here with us on this at this open house, but this has been a really exciting part of what we're doing is getting our field kits into the hands of users around the world with different sorts of needs. Right now we are only selling to the US, but that is certainly, we do want to make this something that is not just for people here in the States or people in the affluent West. So we are really interested in working with, getting feedback from people around the world, no matter where they are or what they're doing.
Yeah, I would just
Go ahead,
all
Jared.
of us chiming in. But when Shah and I started this project, we were really determined to make sure that this wasn't a project that only lived in the United States and Canada. And so, shipping internationally is its own challenge, but we are actively building that list of countries that we're going to ship to, and we should be announcing new countries really regularly for the next year. And if you live somewhere and you want to get a field kit, let us know. We want to get it to you. And I think we mentioned before that the product, both the platform and the app, are going to be internationalized. So we're going to be translating it to Spanish and Portuguese first, but we'll be doing other languages as we go along as well. And if you want to help with that process, we're really eager to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll also add to that we're a nonprofit, so doing this and sending it internationally is a very kind of complicated thing for a nonprofit to do. There's not a lot of resources for nonprofits that want to ship products that are manufactured by them internationally. And as Jared said, you have to deal with shipping, but you also have to deal with tax implications and customs implications. And so one of the things we're doing as a result of this effort is pulling together a lot of information about that. And that's information that will be in the future very happy to share with other people who would like to go down that path, because there's a lot that you don't know until you start looking, and it's very complicated. So so feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in that sort of stuff.
Yeah, understatement of the century. It's complicated. All right, and then finally, another big piece of our community effort is the idea of working groups, or these cohorts that we are building of like-minded people who might have similar needs or similar feedback on how to make FieldKit work for them. So one of our early groups has been working with librarians, how you would manage sharing FieldKit within a community, making it something that can be easily managed by a library system for intake, and handling all of the different parts of that. So we have 4 different libraries that are going to be part of our pilot program that should be starting sometime this spring. Additionally, we're building groups around educators, citizen scientists, anyone kind of in the maker, open source, hardware enthusiast realm, field scientists, and really any other groups that bubble up based on need, based on things that we learned. So obviously, if you want to take part in this, let us know. If you have an idea that your local cohort of underwater basket weavers could really do some cool stuff with FieldKit, let us know.
Yeah,
I just want to say out loud that was not a diss about basket weavers, because basket weaving is like one of the most fascinating things that and I love basket weavers. So
anyway. Absolutely. Never let it be said.
Yeah, I also just want to add a little thing to that. There's also active FieldKit projects happening in other parts of the world outside of this. And so reach out to us if you're maybe working in some of these regions, but we're working with UCLA and the Congo Basin and Wildlife Conservation Society and FIU and the Amazon rainforest and the city of New York. There's a bunch of projects that are currently ongoing that we don't really talk a lot about. But if you are in any of those sorts of regions, or if you're wondering if there's other people using FieldKit in your regions, reach out to us and we can maybe link you up with some people who are and might have more experience or would be interested in collaborating.
Awesome. And when we talk about kind of the I almost say like mycelial way that we think about FieldKit, of the way that it connects different things, different disciplines, different needs, different issues. This is a framework that Jared put together that I really like. If you'd like to just kind of give your vision for how this how this works.
Yeah, sure. And I just want to say one thing, because I think it's really important to underscore, which is that if you go to our site, you'll see that we have like a FieldKit weather and a FieldKit water. But really the thing that we're so most excited about is that if you have a FieldKit weather, and then you add an air quality module to it, you now have a station that does weather and air quality. And if you want to take those two out and put some water sensors modules in it, then you now have a station that does all of those things. So I think I've been hearing so many great conversations in the chat about like, can FieldKit do this? Can FieldKit do that? And I think one of the really exciting parts for us to think about is that there are off-the-shelf sensor stations that can do certain things, but all those edge cases, they can't do very well or at all. And we want to hit those edge cases. So if you have an exciting thing that you're thinking about that would involve a combination of different sensors, we want to talk to you. Speaking of combinations, we really think about FieldKit as being this bridge that can span disciplines, that can span practices. And this comes back to the idea of modularity. So Lindsay, if you want to go to the next slide, we are, specifically in an education context, we see FieldKit as a thing that can bridge these sort of disparate sides of this diagram. So, teachers or citizen scientists who want to connect the idea of mathematics to climate change can use this tool to do so. And as we've been unpacking our projects that we've been doing in-house, we've been really excited about ways that we can find branches that maybe don't seem conventional. So we can go to the next slide here. And for me as an artist, I'm really excited about how we can branch things that maybe feel a little bit far apart. But in this particular case, we're really interested in looking at environmental activist projects that might branch local ecologies to ideas of citizen science and use that to interrogate things like structural racism or structural inequalities. And another thing that Shah and I were really dedicated to when we set this out was to reduce the gates that exist around environmental sensing. And those gates are cost, but they're also expertise, and they're also about cultural expectations. And I joke that Shah and I spent like 8 years climbing over those gates, and we have like the gashes and bruises and scars to show for it. And that's the kind of thing that we're really interested in making easy for other people. And I think like there's so many excellent opportunities here. If you go to the next slide, I just talked to somebody in the chat about this project that we're starting to unfold in the Yucatan Peninsula, which centers around the Mayan indigenous people who live in the Yucatan and the cenotes and the groundwater that exists across the peninsula. And so here's this project that really takes all types of things and puts them together. We're really excited about the potentials. I always think that the most exciting thing about making a project like this is not the things that the platform can do, but the things that you don't know the platform can do. And we really, and I say we keep on saying this over and over again, but we really do want to hear from you. And that sort of brings us to the last part, which is like, you probably heard from us today that we're very enthusiastic, but we're also small. We're a small team. And we want to turn FieldKit into a large and enthusiastic community. And so we want to know how we can help you and how you can help us, and what types of things would make you excited about contributing to FieldKit. And I would love to say, because I believe it, that no matter who you are, you have something to contribute, whether that's through like translations or through hardware design or through curricula development for students or through just examples of how to use our tool. And I hope it's also clear for you that like this is a labor of love for all of us, and we would love to sort of pass some of that enthusiasm on to you and make it a shared thing. And I think that's all we have to talk at you with. We would love for you to talk at us. So if you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat and we can read them out for people. If that's the easiest way for you. You can also use the hand raise thing if you want to ask a question in another way if typing is not easy for you. So let us know.
Yeah, I would also maybe add that, like, just to get your thoughts running around this, like a few of the things we're thinking about what's next about FieldKit is there's a lot of interest in air quality. So we're developing different versions of air quality sensors. You might see Pete in the comments answering a bunch of questions about calibrations and accuracies and all that sort of stuff that we're thinking very deeply of. But also down the line, there's various versions of soil moisture, different sort of communication stuff like LoRa, even a version of FieldKit that works in marine environments is another thing that we've just kicked off recently with some partners at the Smithsonian. So there's a lot of like kind of ideas and opportunities there, and we're really the future of FieldKit belongs to the people who come and tell us that, like, hey, this would be a really useful tool for us to use in the work that we do out in the world. And so, like, if you're one of those people, we would love to hear from you and start to shape what this looks like moving forward. Looks like Jerome has a question.
Jerome?
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the sensing field, I'm not too familiar with it, but if you wanted to go and test specific things, there's a lot of companies out there, right, that have very specific testing sensors. If you wanted to test all the kinds of things in your pool, for instance, you could go and get very specific devices for all of those different things. I'm wondering how you compare with the history of that kind of community of individual testing units to your testing units and your modules and your probes that you're bringing out in terms of the efficacy or the depth at which they're able to read. How serious can I take the information coming from those modules and probes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is something that we're working really hard at. So Pete, who you've seen on the chat, he works with FieldKit, and his sole job is to make sure that the stuff that we're building is scientifically relevant and accurate and can be easily compared to a lot of the commercially available stuff that's out there right now. So one of our plans over the course of this year is to do comparison studies and be very honest and frank about this is where FieldKit ranks in amongst all these different things. And sometimes those rankings are going to be primarily on the accuracy or precision of the sensor. Sometimes it's going to be a bigger thing, like how expensive is that sensor, right? Obviously, the more money you spend on these things, the more accurate they get in some circumstances. And so we're really trying to see how we can fit in that place. We do offer, I think, a lot of things that a lot of people don't have, like so the modularity, the ability to add lots of different types of sensors very easily, as easily as just plugging something in and it works. That's something that is very hard to do with existing systems. But yeah, exactly what you said is at the top of our mind all the time. We want to make something that's actually useful in wildlife conservation, environmental justice, climate change research, all that sort of stuff, and not just something that feels like a toy to people or isn't really giving them the data that they'd like to see.
Yeah, I would add to that just one thing, which is that, like, the openness is another thing that separates. There's a lot of proprietary data formats, like software, et cetera, that exists in other sort of scientific grade solutions. And we're trying to make it super easy to get your data out. And that sort of data portability is one of the very most important things for us.
Yeah, I would think, because I've looked into trying to get different specific things that I wanted to test for, and it was very difficult because I had to individualize what I was looking for, and then everything cost a lot of money. So that's why I'm interested in learning more about what you're doing, because there's that advocacy there and the possibility of putting a lot in one small area. So,
if I may, to that end, Jerome, you were also talking about trust, and that's actually a bit of a quandary for anybody introducing a new device into a field where usually you hear the names Davis or Campbell Scientific and YSI or Teledyne and all of these big names, who have a whole bunch of momentum behind them, or even Onset and Hobo. And the thing is that throughout the entire market, the thing is, from the researcher's perspective, then it's really more a matter of whether or not I can trace the data back to a known source, whether or not I can trace the measurement back to a physical standard that I can actually trust. And that's part of the reason why for us, actually the calibration of our units to physical standards is a very, very important part of our workflow as we're getting into each one of these different sensing modes. So being able to say, not only is it traceable back to a physical standard, but that physical standard then is traceable back to like NIST or one of the other bureaus of standards in a country, gives that trust to our data that you won't necessarily get from any of those other logger or individual meter sorts of situations. I can pick up a dissolved oxygen meter off of Amazon for less than $100. Should I trust its readings without first testing it against a known dissolved oxygen meter? No. So that's one of the things we're trying to lean into as well, is finding ways to engage that trust, not just because we say you should trust us, unlike some of the big boys in the field, but actually because of the fact that our measurements are backed by physical reality and calibration. Sorry to go on about that. Calibration is one of my big hats here at FieldKit.
Thanks, Pete. All right, and I think we had another hand up, but that person had to leave. I did want to call out a great question in the chat from John, because I know the answer to it, asking about, do we have any experience with the stations and wildlife or animals in the field and how they hold up?
Oh man, that we could spend the rest of this talk about that. We have had stations like trampled by elephants and dismantled by all kinds of different animals. And you know, I think if you're experienced with this at all, you'll know that there's kind of no best practice solution to this, because animals will always mess around with your sensors, whether that's ants getting into your box or you know, larger fauna. We have lots of advice for that. So one of the reasons why we built, so if Shah can hold up the box again, we built a custom enclosure is because we wanted something that was really durable and weatherproof, that we could put the thing in. I think anybody who does this kind of stuff knows that you're always trying to like adapt to whatever case you have for the purpose. And so this is like as tight as we can get it. And then the community forum is certainly a place where we're going to be offering lots of advice on that, like putting cayenne pepper and on your in Vaseline on your cables to make sure that the squirrels don't like to chew them. And you know, this is all hard-earned wisdom, and that's another thing that we're trying to do, is to try to put this wisdom in one place. And that actually, I should say that another project which we're hoping to launch really soon is a wiki for sensors, so for environmental sensors. So we're putting together a kind of open library of sensors that anybody can contribute to. And so we've been a little busy getting this product out, but hopefully that'll come in the coming months. And you know, it's just a chance to really openly answer questions about like which of these sensors, what do they do, who makes them, you know, what are the challenges with them, and so on and so on. And yeah, we're really keen on also becoming, as part of this community for environmental care, like being this place where people can share learned wisdom so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. Like we don't need any more cables chewed by squirrels.
And for that matter, also cows. If you've ever done any field deployments, cows love to floss their teeth with cables. Just have to say that from personal experience.
If anyone has a question, please raise your hand and we can pull you up.
Yeah, and then I should also say that I just posted a link in the chat, and I'll post it again by itself. We have a little form. So if you're interested in FieldKit, and I promise you this is not going to get you like a timeshare, like sales phone calls, but we'd love to follow up with you. And so if you are interested in FieldKit, let us know, and we can work with you and yeah, just answer any questions you might have that you might that you might have.
It looks like Sanjana had a question. I don't know if you want to either say that or type it out. Either one is fine. But about mobile AQ monitoring. Oh,
hey,
you are.
yeah, how are you
Hey.
guys? Peter was helpfully answering my question in the chat already, but I'll repeat it, so that everyone else can hear in case other folks have the same question. So I'm Sanjana, I'm based in Virginia, and so I'm very new to a research group that does a lot of mobile air quality monitoring stuff. And so this is kind of to really study what's happening in cities at a hyperlocal level. And of course, there's a huge environmental justice component to that because, more air pollution in, communities of color and stuff like that. So I was just interested to know if there were any plans, to make field kits kind of optimized for mobile air quality monitoring use, if you'd looked into that, what the landscape was. Again, Peter gave me a great answer, very excited to see the progress on that, but, I'd love to hear if the rest of the team has any thoughts.
Yeah, I will say right now, right off its bat, FieldKit has a GPS device on it, and you can put FieldKit in a mode that will correlate data to the location. So the station that I showed you today was something that would be deployed somewhere statically. But if you did want to get data over time, you can do that with a FieldKit as is. One of the configurations that we currently have and we've been testing for a long time, basically most of last year, is a configuration where a sensor module can sit on the back of that upper and lower core board. So that would basically make the field kit about this size, and you could have an air quality module that has the sort of sensors that you're looking for, and it would be in a small little size that's about the size of like a deck of cards, maybe a little bit thicker than that. That would allow you to kind of take that around as you're going. And we have a project that we're kind of working with Florida International University right now around around heat islands in Miami, where they want to do exactly that, but looking at temperature and humidity information instead of air quality. So, but feel free to reach out to us and talk to us about that, because there's a big opportunity there.
Right, I also want to add that like mobile air quality is something that we want to do, but as you probably well know, stationary air quality is also really useful if you have enough stations. And so this is something that's super nascent, but something to put out there is that we're prototyping some stuff with the NYC Mesh people about putting stations on public Wi-Fi spots, like community mesh Wi-Fi spots. And so that's something that we're also really interested in. And that also goes with this Florida project, is like, can we get a whole bunch of stationary air quality stations that can record for a longer duration, so that you can see a little more closely about how things are changing. And one of the things I'm personally very excited about that is like using those stations to kind of ground truth the mobile stuff, right? So it's like, if I can, like, my mobile path can go past some of these stationary stations, then I can use that information to help understand a little bit better what's going along the path. So like we're really excited in exactly this application, and we'd love to talk to you more about what you're doing.
Yeah, I will definitely reach out. This is awesome.
Looks like Jerome has your hand up again.
Yes, I'm not trying to take everyone's, but I just put my hand up. If no one else asks, then I'll go. But yeah, this seems, I had an idea a long time ago about, fitting out like a Sprinter van and filling it with testing units and things that could go into communities that were underdeprived and test, the water and the air and all those things that are getting screwed over by corporations, or companies, people going into that. It sounds like you guys are kind of on that vein a little bit, where maybe you can take these devices into communities where you can get independent analysis of what's happening over a course of time because of the impact of deforestation or a coal mine or some of these different things. I'm just wondering if that's like, you have a field kit, if you could do something like that with field kit where you could be independent and get testing in those kind of situations.
Shah, do you want to take that? Sorry, I've been answering a question in the chat, so I didn't get the whole question. I'm sorry.
You don't have to answer it either if you don't want to. That's cool.
No, I was doing the same. I was responding to somebody. So your question is if we've looked into doing that sort of, putting a bunch of stuff on a van and testing in those sorts of situations?
My idea was that you would fill the van with a couple of college students, then you'd get them to go into somewhere and learn about science and do the testing, and you'd fund that, and they would go into indigenous areas or areas that are really fighting the battle against our environment that's being destroyed. And you would have in that van the ability to test water, the ability to really have an independent source for what's going on,
Yeah.
And just listening to you guys, maybe there's something in there where FieldKit could be an independent thing in those kind of situations where you've got two or three parties battling each other over the environment, and you want to show, hey, this is having an impact in these things.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a great idea. And the open house that we had before this one was focused on educators. And I know some of the educators that listened into that are thinking through like how they can do more of like a mobile classroom. So maybe use these sorts of tools to do that sort of exploration of the world. And working with some people that I know, we had some educators from Hawaii that are looking exactly at that sort of thing, not in that same sort of context. But I think that there is a lot there to what you're saying, and we'd be very happy to participate in something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I should say that like we're like really foundationally, this is another thing that we started out with this project with, is like one of the challenges with this type of work is this kind of, and I'm not at all, I think you have it's a great idea, but is to try to stop this kind of parachute science of like coming into communities and like collecting data. So, rather than a van coming into those communities with sensors, maybe that like van comes into the community and helps like train people to use those sensors and so that they live in those places. But that's like really, it's core of why of our project. It's like one of the reasons why this parachute science exists is because these things are so expensive, and the only people.
I guess when I say an idea, that's why I ask it, because you give me some feedback. I learned from that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great. Any more questions?
I think we're in our last 20 seconds in any case. We have a little bit more time for the stream, so if anyone wants to stay around and just ask some more questions or just chat, we're happy to talk to you. And yeah, I think Shah and Lindsay can drop, and Pete can drop their emails in the chat. And if anybody wants to reach out to us directly, we're always happy to answer your questions. And yeah, the weirder the idea, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And we'd love to explore with you and to figure out ways to work together.
Yeah, definitely. Please reach out to us. We're all ears, and this is an open source project of a nonprofit organization, and so we're like, everything we do is absolutely collaborative, and we're always open to helping people work through ideas and develop new approaches. So please feel free to reach out to us.
There's been quite a few questions in the chat about like the sensors that we have in development, and are you working, like someone just asked if we're working on sensors to measure the quantity of fecal matter or contamination in the water. we were working on thinking about a lot of things and then working on a small set of things, but that like layer below about, it's always going to work like that kind of a conveyor belt. So we would love to hear from you about any and all ideas about sensors that you'd like, and that can go into our thinking about pile, and then they'll move up onto the working on pile. And then I want to underscore this is that our hardware schematics are open source. So for those of you who have the expertise to develop electronics, you can develop your own electronics that will plug into our platform. And we would love to talk to people who are keen on doing that.
All right. Like we
I'm
said,
just-
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, if I just mute and jump in here. Hi, Shah. Nice to see you. I was just
Hey,
gonna.
Elizabeth.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the marine work you mentioned, the type of marine projects you're working on.
Yeah, so we just barely at the end of last year kicked off FieldKit Marine. It's a project we're doing with Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. And so they're interested in, there's a program that they have going over the next couple of years around monitoring coral resilience in a bunch of different areas along the Eastern Pacific. And that's interesting because some of the underwater geology allows for like very resilient corals. And so we're basically creating a version of FieldKit that is optimized for marine situations. And so there's lots of things that we would change with the current architecture, but it's going to be in the same product family as regular FieldKit. So, you know, there's a lot that we're going to be building on existing firmware and all that sort of stuff. And so we're just basically starting that project now, and we'll be doing it over the next couple of years.
Thank you. It's very cool. I've loved hearing about all the different projects y'all are involved in. So, and have been a fan of FieldKit and Conservify, and of course Shah for a while now. So, thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks. Right. Well, as we said, we're happy to stay on, but in a world where we are all overwhelmed with Zoom meetings, I'm also happy if nobody else has any other questions to end up.
Yeah,
So,
and I know I don't know if you're like me, like often like the question doesn't come to me while I'm here, but then literally the minute you close the window, you're like, oh yeah, that's a great question. So so please send us those questions. You know, the secret is that anything at fieldkit.org will get to us. So you could just guess an email address at fieldkit.org and it'll come to us. But everyone at fieldkit.org is the easiest one to remember.
yeah.
I don't think we have a random at fieldkit.org though, not yet at least.
Well, I think we do technically.
We have a
anything
we
will
have a
come to us.
catch-all. We'll get it. Whatever you send it to, we'll get it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Like Jer said, if anything comes up, feel free to drop us a line. And I really look forward to having some of you, as many of you as are interested as part of our growing community. That's what we are looking to do in the world.
Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank you. Bye.